Hello, my name is David and welcome back to my channel. Today is the celebration of my birthday and I've been doing it with all of you here on BookTube. We started off the morning with a Wheel of Names spin. Spun it twice to pick two authors that I would read every single book by in publication order, committing to review them in an attempt to get through one each month, no matter how long that takes. And we got two authors that have a fair amount of writing to their name. The first one was Ray Bradbury, who I am very well versed in with some of his major works, but there's a lot more that I didn't know was out there. He wrote not only novels and short story collections, but he wrote some plays, some screenplays, some children's books. I've got a lot of reading ahead of me, and we'll see how well I can get my hands on some of these. Cursory look, I'm not able to find a copy of his first book for less than $500. So that one might be pushed back just a little bit in case I can snag one for dirt cheap eventually. Um, so yeah, I'm still trying to wrap my head around that. I'm guessing that I'm going to start both of these authors in July to give me time to organize lists to place an order for the first couple of books to get them in. And I've already had a packed June reading list with Ancient Sithon, so that'll alleviate some of that pressure. During that video, I also announced that I would be reading 20 different comic storyline arcs, 10 from DC and 10 from Marvel, based on some 2021 posts on giving the top 10 to read from each of those. So I've got some comic storylines to get under my belt. I will be depending largely on my libraries to find those. And I plan to, since I'm moving the read every book by into July, I'll probably get the first one of those knocked out this month for sure. I don't know which one yet because I'll be seeing what my local library has, but I'm excited to dive into those. I did some unboxings, so I got quite the haul. Some of them birthday related, some of them gifts from booktubers as a just because, and some of them as eBay purchases. And it was a lot of primarily vintage science fiction and fantasy. And I also committed to read each and every one of those that came in that box, no matter how long it takes. That's a lot of Edgar Rice Burroughs, so he is my unofficial third read every book by. I might actually start him this month because, well, I've got every book by him. Might as well do the same approach, read them all in publication order, so I've got to look and see which book that is to kick things off, but I'll probably dive into that here sooner than later. And so the last thing I'm going to start doing is I want to make sure I'm also making progress on my existing book TBRs, because the temptation is strong to go after, these Appendix N authors that I'm doing the challenge for, that these read every book by authors that I have nothing of, to, well, I guess I own the vintage books now, but rather than solely focusing on what's hot and latest and greatest in library loans and purchasing new books to expand my collection, I want to make sure I'm also spending some time revisiting books on my shelf, or visiting for the first time in the case of most of them. So what I'm going to be doing is it's going to be kind of on a rotation basis. So I'm going to pick 5 books from my shelf. I'm going to get kind of an eclectic assortment here. These aren't going to be your typical booktube books, so you're not going to see genre fiction by and large. Now, every once in a while, some of those vintage books might sneak in there, but this is to make sure I'm also hitting the ones that are a little quirky, that are a little off the beaten path, the historical books, the historical fictions, and things of that nature. And so I've got 5 books sitting here with me. I'm going to show them all off. I'm going to read a little bit off of the back and leave a comment. Let me know which of these 5 I should dive into first. Now, in a week's time, I will basically take the one that has the most comments and run with it. So even if you know nothing about any of these, even if you have no interest in any of these, feel free to pick one of the five. You're helping me decide which one I should read. So the first book I have here is The Last Days of Socrates by Plato. This is Penguin Classic Edition. So this is translated by Hugh Trednick. So the trial and condemnation of Socrates on charges of heresy and corrupting the minds of the young forms one of the most tragic episodes in the history of Athens in decline. Plato chose to set the four works of this volume, despite their different subjects, in the context of the events leading up to Socrates' execution. Euthyphro, and Crito are typical Socratic dialogues, showing the pungency of his mind in addressing the question of man's relationship with the gods and with society. The Apology is Plato's version of Socrates' speeches at his trial, a brilliant and humorous manifesto for a life guided by self-responsibility, though deliberately doomed to failure as a legal defense. In Phaedo, Plato develops his own philosophy out of Socrates' calm confidence in the face of death. So, there's one book. The second is another Penguin classic, an old Penguin classic. This is Tristan by Gottfried von Strassburg, translated by A.T. Hatto. So this is an Arthurian era tale. If the two of whom this love story tells had not endured sorrow for the sake of joy, love's pain for its ecstasy within one heart, their names in history would never have brought such rapture to so many noble spirits. Gottfried von Strassburg's Tristan, written in 1210, here completed with the surviving fragments of the earlier Tristan of Thomas, is a masterpiece of formal artistry. This tale of the hero Tristan and the beautiful Queen Isolde, united by a magic potion and a passion that defies all legal and moral sanctions, has stood the test of time as one of the greatest love stories ever written. So there is book number 2. I'll have all of 5 of these listed down below in the description as well. Next we have The War of the Roses by Alison Weir. So this is historical fiction set in the War of the Roses, obviously. So we have Lancaster and York. For much of the 15th century, these two families were locked in battle for control of the English throne. Kings were murdered and deposed, armies marched on London, old noble names were ruined while rising dynasties seized power and lands. The war between the royal houses of Lancaster and York, the most complex in English history, profoundly altered the course of the monarchy. So, option 3. Option 4, we have Chronicles of the Crusades by Joinville and Villehardouin. So this is composed by soldiers who fought in the Holy Wars. These two famous French chronicles are among the most important portrayals of both the light and the dark sides of the 200-year struggle for possession of Jerusalem. The first trustworthy and fully informed history of the Crusades, Villehardouin's conquest of Constantinople, describes the era of the Fourth Crusade between 1199 and 1207, during which a planned battle with Muslim forces ironically culminated in war against the Eastern Christians that led to the sacking of Constantinople. The life of St. Louis was inspired by Joinville's close attachment to the pious King Louis and focuses on the years between 1226 and 1270. It provides a powerful personal insight into the brutal battles and the fascinating travels of one nobleman fighting in the 6th and 7th Crusades. So these are translated by M.R.B. Shaw. Yet another penguin. Gosh, didn't realize I was grabbing 3 penguins. But hey, Penguin Classics. And last we have our biggest volume here, the Viking Wars by Max Adams. So this is War and Peace in King Alfred's Britain. So that's 789 to 955. A history of Britain in the violent era between the first Scandinavian raids in 789 and the final expulsion of the Vikings from York in 954. In 865, a great Viking army landed in East Anglia, precipitating a series of wars that would last until the middle of the following century. It was in this time of crisis that the modern kingdoms of Britain were born. In their responses to the Viking threat, these kingdoms forged their identities as hybrid cultures. vibrant and entrepreneurial peoples adapting to instability and opportunity. Traditionally, Alfred the Great is cast as the central player in the story of the Viking Age Britain, but Max Adams, while stressing the genius of Alfred as a war leader, lawgiver, and forger of the English nation, has a more nuanced narrative approach to this conventional version of history. The Britain encountered by the Scandinavians of the ninth and 10th centuries was one of regional diversity and self-conscious cultural identities depicted in glorious narrative fashion in the Viking Wars. So those are the 5. Again, leave a comment which one of the 5 you would like me to read and review next. I'm not setting any kind of a time frame on those. They will get just kind of penciled in into my rotation. And once I'm getting close to the end of whichever book is picked, I'll grab another 5 off my shelf. Not any of these. So I'll eventually they'll cycle back in. My collection is not that massive that they'll be out for a while. But I'll choose a different 5 and have people vote on it to have it close down around the time that I finish one. So I will try to always have a constant rotation where I'm reading one of my backlog books that's on my shelf. And again, this will be a very eclectic mix. You'll see a lot of medieval literature, a lot of medieval and ancient history. You'll eventually see some Tolkien and Lewis maybe squeeze in there, some Arthurian literature, and eventually maybe some older genre fiction. So thank you for watching, and hope you've had a great day. I've enjoyed watching all of your comments and everything pop up through the day. So thank you for all the wonderful birthday wishes, and I hope that you have a wonderful day reading.